Recently we've been learning what the EU5 1.2 patch will bring with the Fate of the Phoenix DLC. Today it's time to hear more about the changes, the 3 changes that are gonna happen, both new features but most importantly key rebalance. What Johan is saying in yesterday's Team Talks is first of all a reminder about something that we already knew, we learned about it, that the EU5 team is split into 3 different tracks that work simultaneously, where one team is focusing on the DLC, that's what we've been hearing about recently. Second group of the people is focusing on fixing bugs and the problems that need immediate focus, while the third team is doing the stuff that we're gonna learn about today, and these are more like a long-term rebalances and required features. First of all, a new feature, something that is called an urban light. So every town and city, and also Megalopolis, we're gonna learn what the hell is a Megalopolis later, will have certain rights that will allow you to make some of these locations be focused on one production because of its other bonuses. So for example, you might have a location that is gonna be purely focused on trading, but at the same time it's gonna lose some production efficiency. What's coming with that as well is some default urban rights, but then also some more focus to specific cultures and nations. Like you see that German territories can access the Magdeburg and Nuremberg rights to encourage migration, merchant growth. Iberian rulers have access to various furos, and Scandinavian rulers can grant Brexlack or fishing privileges to the ports and mines. Obviously, granting these rights is not gonna be free, it's gonna cost you legitimacy by rewarding stability. A town can have 1 urban right, a city can have 2 urban rights, so that's another thing that is gonna push you towards creating more cities, even if it's much more expensive, while capital have 1 additional slot. So the goal of this feature is to diversify your economy, so not every single urban location is done the same way and just going for the most efficient stuff. Here's to actually lose a bit in overall production in the specific location, but simply focus on, like you see, textiles or weaponry. I think it's pretty cool, especially for people that do like to play tall and micromanage their economic stuff. For people that didn't care about that yet, like economy was just a mean towards the goal of more expansion, that's just gonna be some additional clicks, so I wouldn't say that feature is gonna be significant overall, but for this that do like to micromanage stuff, it's gonna be cool. Second thing is an improvement to the trade. So far you could fully automate your trade, you could partially automate your trade where some specific routes were created by you and excluded from the automation. They're adding 1 more layer to it, which is I think pretty cool. Because these manual routes that you created, they could become ineffective after time, inefficient, so they're good for like some temporary push towards something. What they are adding is a feature called trade orders that allow you to put a certain amount of your capacity on general trade of a specific good, pushing export or import specific good. So for example, you know that you've got a lot of saffron right in your country, but you don't want to micromanage every single month or every few months where it's gonna bring you the most of money. By putting a trade order on export of your saffron, let's say on 5 trade capacity, the automation is gonna use that 5 trade capacity purely solely to checking every single month what's the most efficient route to export saffron. And you can obviously do that with multiple goods. You will see on the UI here at the bottom of the screen that the trade UI is gonna show you the top 5 goods, but you can do much more. A Megalopolis is a new tier of an urban location. It's very unique. Yes, not saying that it's something that is, that is always a goal to get as fast as possible, but there is something that's gonna achieve in like mid to late game because of its requirements. What they're saying that you need 400,000 inhabitants in that location. It has to be a market center and it has to be your capital. See, all these modifiers that the Megalopolis is giving what they mentioned is that it's actually decreasing speed of integration, not only in here where you are, but also overall in the whole capital area. They also mentioned that there are some megalopolis at the start of the game, like Constantinople, Cairo, and Beijing. My only comment about that it's really pushing, giving another edge to Asians. Well, you know, it should be, if you want the game to go historic, it should be the other way around. Europeans should be getting more and more edge to, like, against Asians, Africans, and other subcontinents to, like, historically dominate the new world. In here, you know, there's so many more people in India. There's so many more people in China. It's gonna be much easier for them to create a megalopolis ahead of Europeans. In Europe, it's close to impossible to get 400,000 inhabitants until like late mid game. Obviously, you can achieve that by pushing people towards a specific location. Yeah, it's achievable if you like put a lot of focus on it, even in mid game. So I guess we'll have to play around with it. Just a note about, you know, that edge. But I guess if you have a big empire and a lot of migration and attraction in your capital, that's achievable quite easily even in Europe. They are changing yet again how the cost of the core is calculated. The new calculation is gonna be 10% of your economic base, so everything not only depending on your control of the locations. The major difference that they're making is that you're not being able anymore to make it at the cost of 0, which was achievable, you know, with stacking some modifiers. So you're gonna always pay something, and 10% is like a floor cost that cannot be reduced to 0. There are also some changes to the buildings. I'm not sure 100% what they mean by this specific paragraph, so I'm gonna read it, maybe you understand it better. Colonizing nations can now erect a colonial administration in their overseas territories, converting distant possessions into genuine trade assets. Back home, a new line of rumored buildings traces the arc of early modernity, from Renaissance learning through the Age of Discovery, absolutist governance, steadily concentrating control and crown power in your hands. What that means, I'm not yet sure, but the second paragraph is really interesting, because some of the buildings can be torched during the war, letting occupying armies or rebellious populations leave lasting scars on the land. I'm curious if it's gonna work like, for example, earthquakes that destroy some of the buildings. Probably here is just a selection of them. We'll learn more. They're also changing the balance of the cost of expanding your RGOs, which is pretty much as like the more expensive the good targeting RGOs, the more you're gonna pay for it, and also the cheaper the good, the less you're gonna pay for it. And so the calculations is, you see at the bottom, right? There's a base cost of 50. If that good is cheap in your market, you can get up to minus 33% cost. And then depending on the base price of that good, it's gonna be increased or decreased. The goal is, so, you know, the big goods like gold or silver, the RGO simply costs more, while very basic goods like, you know, food is gonna be much cheaper. So especially in early game, you're gonna be able to still get, you know, more food, and the general basic industry expanded faster, while the strategy goods will require more of resources. There are also changes to the starting setup of the country, like major cities will be having their starting setup being more historical, like Venice being dominated in the glass and naval, Florence in the cloth and dyes, Damascus in the weapons and silk, etc, etc. Besides the change on the cities and towns, the historical ones, there's also changes all to starting buildings of the many states, and the quantity and which states are getting they reflect the, you know, the 1337 power share of the states. There are some good changes and their prices, and I think that was long awaited. You know, how many of you guys complained about how strong gold and silver are in game, like how powerful Hungary or Bohemia become because of that? They're reducing prices of both a little bit. Gold from 10 to 8, silver from 8 to 6, elephant from 10 to 5, and then there are also boosts to some other goods, like for example making glass a little bit more relevant. Why? Increasing demand for it in the country. Books will be significantly cheaper, raw materials will be much cheaper, to move via trade. Underdeveloped regions with a lot of peasants that are unemployed are gonna get some bonus to, you know, catch up for the stronger countries, where for each unemployed peasants, the stone, clay, sand, lumber, you know, the basic, very basic input goods are gonna receive some production. They also want to try shifting the historical prices of some goods even more than currently to follow the historical process. Like in early game, spirits, tobacco, coffee and tea should be barely demanded because they're not new, and then over time these goods will get more and more significance, more and more demand from the people, thanks, you know, to all the colonization. There's a new tab in the province where you see, besides infrastructure, military and demography, we'll also now have a summary of what goods are produced in this location, how much was their price, and how much you're earning in the end, both base tax and actual taxation. There's a major change to how population is gonna be calculated. Before, only peasants were, you know, taking advantage from the population growth, while all the other estates, the growth was impacted by promotions and, you know, demand for these estates. Like, you know, there was building possible nobles in a location, for example. Well, right now they're gonna heavily nerf the promotion modifier to also, you know, keep the more or less same classes split through the ages, you know, slight changes. It was too dynamic right now. And, for example, we were getting way too many burgers with urbanization. And at the same time, all the other states are gonna also have some population growth. You know, there's some more deeper changes they're doing here, like labor markets and social mobility. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. Same as how food consumption and stock are gonna impact the growth. There is general trade system overhaul as well, where, you know, before you were limited by the trade range or where you can actually send your merchants. Right now, there's no limit on the trade range as long as I assume you see the market, but the more far away the market is, the more costly it's gonna be to transport the goods and way less profitable to do so. At the same time, they're also making sure that the sea-powered nations are promoted over here, where, you know, having maritime presence, big empires, even with the subjects, are gonna make the cost much lower. Also, the default cost via navy is gonna be lower. I think if they're doing that differentiation, they should also think about reducing the cost of transporting via rivers, because rivers were kind of used in the same way, but that's probably gonna be tricky. There's lots of other changes to the trade. We're not gonna get like super deep into that. But overall, the trade capacity costs were reduced. They are removing the trade efficiency modifier and split that into 3 different modifiers, where we've got selling efficiency, export efficiency, and import efficiency. So selling efficiency is like within your own market, and export import are kinda self-explanatory. They're also rebalancing how the countries are handling the demand, like the vast priority should be always the demand of the people and input requirements for the input goods in the buildings, and then, you know, making the profit. Before it was always prioritizing the profit. There are some bugs to the automations, but how it's gonna work we will see in the next patch. You'll get much more information on what exactly the burgers are doing, how much of the trading your burgers are doing in that specific node. You also have that information in the ledger, and some more changes to the AI economy overall. Like there's that thing about not chasing the profit but seeking the goods that are required. There should be boosts to the plantations and slave workforce in the colonial empires. There are 3 also bugs / not great experiences being fixed. For example, temporary demands being added by the events are gonna be consumed as the last to impact the prices. Bankruptcy did not destroy the construction queue, which is weird. It was like that in EU4. They fixed that. Right now it's gonna like cancel the full construction queue. And finally, the constructions at the top of the queue that could progress will add their demands to the market. So, before if you had a huge queue that all stocked so many requirements, you could run out of paper or run out of books for a specific building. Right now, only the ones that are actually in the middle of the construction are doing the demands. And if the construction is halted, it seems it's not gonna also do the demand, like for example because of severe winter. But yeah, next week we're gonna hear more about changes and improvements to the military system, logistics, and some new concepts brought to that patch. Looks like we've got really positive reactions from the forum about this. Let's take a look if there's any other information that Johan is sharing in his dev responses. There is a complaint from the user about the current meta where we have so many subjects, you use them to assimilate and convert locations, and because they have so many cabinets all combined versus you alone, it is a meta to spam subjects and also enforce the religion and culture of them. Johan said that they tried it, but it wasn't popular in the beta, and his personal opinion is that you shouldn't be able to enforce culture and religion on the subjects, and they shouldn't be able to assimilate. But as you see, it's not introduced, so his opinion might be not also popular within the team. And the access might be also confirming that even in the community. I didn't read about, it's a comment from the user, I didn't read anything about restricting the funding of cities. It says like this: AI will steal urbans like crazy and the city rights will lose any value and rather become micromanagement hell. And Johan is saying that the AI is changing a bit on this as well. How? We'll see. Usually, for example, India ends up being one big urban state, where it shouldn't be that case. Even like, why would they urbanize iron, right, or saffron locations? But yeah, this is it for today. Let me know what you think about these changes, and like the video to support it to get to more people with good news, bad news. Let me know. Bye.